Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am Heather Hoops Matthews here in the studio today with Nexen Pruitt healthcare attorney Matthew Roberts. Matthew, good to be with you.
Good to see you.
I am terribly excited to interview our guest today. Please help me welcome Dr. Ehsan Jabbarzadeh. He is a professor and the Director of Engineering and Entrepreneurship at the University of South Carolina and the founder of Obsidio, a medical device company recently purchased by Boston Scientific. Dr. Jabbarzadeh, thank you for joining us. I read where your role, and this is what I thought was so interesting, your role, you help entrepreneurs understand what it takes to propel innovation all the way from concept to the marketplace. You do that in the educational field. Tell us a little bit about your role and how you got into this area.
Absolutely. So thank you for having me, and it's a pleasure to speaking with you. So I have basically two hats, both in the context of entrepreneurship. One hat is an educator at the University of South Carolina, where I direct basically our engineering entrepreneurship program. In that context, we work with the students through a master's degree program, as well as an NSF-funded program to instill entrepreneurial mindset and really teach the frameworks of taking an idea from the concept to commercialization. That's more of an educational outlet. The other side of it, as an academic entrepreneur, I am very passionate about bringing applied technology to the market within the context of the healthcare, and Obsidio was a prime example of that.
Well, tell us a little bit about Obsidio and how you came to develop that technology, that company, and then your ultimate sale to Boston Scientific.
Sure. So Obsidio was founded in 2019 by three of us co-founders, all coming from academia. So Dr. Rami Oklu, who is now at Mayo Clinic, he was a physician entrepreneur or physician scientist, part of this. Dr. Ali Khadem Hosseini, who is now at Terasaki Institute, was part of the team, and myself. So the company basically developed a technology to block blood vessels. And in general, physicians do that to either prevent or treat hemorrhage, block tumors from blood supply and hopefully starve them, or treat aneurysms and vascular malformations. So the traditional way of doing that is using coils. So the physicians in general go with a catheter and deploy multiple coils and occlude that blood vessel. And it has a number of limitations, both in terms of efficacy and safety. So what Obsidio brought to the market is an innovative biomaterial based on a really disruptive hydrogel technology out of MIT and Harvard Medical School that basically has a higher safety and efficacy profile, but also had a lot of elements of physician adoption and ease of use. And that's why it was really exciting for strategics and leaders like Boston Scientific to acquire it and now bring it to the market.
How do you, and this might be too simple of a question, but how do you focus on your discovery? Is it something that you and the co-founders come together and say, this is a problem, can we do it better? Or do you see a solution and you say, what kind of problem can it fix? How does that work?
So let me tell you about the story of Obsidio, and then giving you my thoughts about the process of discovery, especially for healthcare that I learned. So in the case of the Obsidio, the two co-founders that we have been working on that innovative biomaterial, again, at MIT and Harvard Medical School. The technology was funded by multiple NIH grants and was published actually but in Science and other really highly reputable journals. So they basically, using those grant funding, they provided a proof of concept and proof of principle to show how the technology worked. The team had a physician in Dr. Rami Oklu who has been doing the procedures, so he saw the unmet need, and we really used the technology to meet that unmet need over time. When I joined the team, the three of us, we had the scientific proof, but we were really thinking about what it takes to make the leap and go from a scientific discovery or a prototype in the lab that has been tested in the bench and animal models to go all the way to a company that produces this as a product. But beyond Obsidio, the way I think about the process is to really first start from the unmet need and then go develop a technology that addresses the unmet need. So not engineering forward, rather engineering backward in the context of the fact that you understand where the physicians are struggling in solving a problem for the patients. And then you go back to the lab, develop a prototype, go through this cycle a couple of times where your product or your concept doesn't work. And then you hone it and you basically further improve it and get it to the point that now you have a proof of principle for it to work. Then you're going to think about all the other elements that a company needs to have to commercialize it, and then you form a company. And that's a process I have been thinking about.
How do you balance the life science challenge of taking or creating new technology to meet that unmet need with the business risk of being a startup? I mean, there are lots of unknowns in both of those concepts as you try to take multiple attempts to achieve a certain technology or breakthrough in a device or in a medicine. But then you also have to make it something that people want to buy or need to buy or will buy and make it work from a business standpoint. How does that balance work with you? And obviously work well with Obsidio, but how do you advise your students on that risk? Because they're both different risks, but they're a double whammy, if you will, when you're trying to start a business in the life sciences industry.
That's a very good question, and that's what actually makes the startup journey a roller coaster and it's full of risk. So when you start a company, the scientific pillar is one pillar as from so many other things that have to work. The intellectual property, the market adoption, the regulatory path, the financing piece, how you manufacturing, and if it is feasible to manufacture it in a clinical grade rather than a lab grade. All sorts of things that you have to really navigate to have a successful startup. So with the case of Obsidio, our due diligence from the point that the scientific discovery was proved to actually launching a company was 6 to 9 months. So we went through this process, which we call it customer discovery. And that's point of understanding what the physicians want, what the reimbursement landscape dictates in this space, how often a procedure is done, what are the nuances in terms of deploying new technologies to the hospitals, and how different sort of stakeholders, even patients, consent to new technologies. What are sort of challenges in the terms of regulatory approach to this, as well as financials and the horizons of it. So we didn't have all the solutions, obviously. We were a small team. So, and you basically, you don't, just a quote that you don't know some of this stuff, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you create a team around yourself that come with very much a complementary expertise. And beyond that, you will have investors that are basically subscribed to your vision, that enable you to bring consultants and advisors that help you along this path. So in our investors, for Obsidio, our investors were Good Growth Capital and IAG Capital Partners, both actually out of South Carolina.
Yes.
Through the connections that I had as a professor at the University of South Carolina that were supporting on us from the onset and really helped us and enabled us to navigate the path, the regulatory path, and other challenges of a startup. In case of consultants, it was my job as a CEO to really surround myself and the team with the best in the industry and bring board members as well as advisors, as well as consultants and contractors who showed us basically what we should expect coming at us to bring this technology. So it's not the process that we learn a lot of times at the universities is more of a straight line of, hey, do these steps, and then you are going to create basically a product. And that's not the case for entrepreneurship. Really, what you are going to have is this maze that you're going to go through and learn along the way with your team. And as long as you have a team that is subscribed to the vision that you have and they are best and they have seen it, then they will enable you to achieve the goal.
Sounds like you need to be able to persevere. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
You mentioned regulatory challenge. And so your discovery had to go through the FDA process. Tell us a little bit about that. How challenging was that?
So we were fortunate to have Hogan Lovells as our regulatory advisors, and we had a number of preclinical consultants who were formerly with FDA, including Dr. Victoria Hampshire. So from the onset, we started having a conversation with the FDA through the pre-subs and then follow-ups to the pre-subs, they call it pre-sub supplements, to really understand what FDA requires in the context of the safety and effectiveness of the device in this category, and what we have to show, what experiments, bench or animal or otherwise, we have to have to really demonstrate to the FDA that this device is intended for what's being built. So those sort of conversations really started early, and we built the confidence, and it was really, really instrumental. In the mind of the academics, a lot of them, when we hear FDA, we are intimidated by their role in terms of device approval. My experience personally was that they actually are a partner. They are a great partner to work with. They do want you to be successful, but they also want you to be successful and show that your device is safe and effective. And they want to make sure that the people who are going to be the other side and receive the treatment are going to be basically safe. So starting the conversation early on, building trust, understanding what are the metrics of success, and really planning your studies with them is something that I learned we have to do, and we conducted. Again, thanks to my regulatory advisors and the team at FDA, we basically learned that and then executed accordingly.
Yeah, what an interesting experience, particularly for you as a professor of entrepreneurship. Give you a lot to talk about. So what's next? You've got this very successful academic career. You've had this very successful startup and then sale. What's next on the horizon for you?
So after acquisition of Obsidio, I got this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to work with Boston Scientific as a part-time basis, as a part-time employee to integrate or help integrate the technology. And I call it once-in-a-lifetime opportunity because basically there are not that many times in the world of an academic entrepreneur or any entrepreneur for that matter that you see how a large company looks at an earlier stage technology and they de-risk it and they basically develop a plan to bring it to the market. So it's basically being paid to go to school again for me over the last few months, and I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity. So they do this for a lot of CEOs of startups that they acquire. So it's a program that many of the larger companies and leaders in the field have for the CEOs. Now, as I transition out of this role, I am actually looking at opportunities both at exciting technologies and also as a VC, so as an investor, focusing on earlier stage technologies that I can contribute not only as an investor, but also contributing as somebody who has gone through this journey and the experience that I learned, share it with the companies that I will be part of investing team.
No doubt your experience will help. Probably, and your encouragement will help as well. What advice would you give to somebody who might have an idea but really doesn't know where to start, whether it's a student or, a peer?
So I see this barrier in many of the universities. Some of the universities are better, and some of the universities are a little bit lagging behind. That a lot of faculty, they see their role as just publishing and then getting it to the patent stage, and that's why a lot of these universities have a lot of the whole rack of patents that are available for licensing, but they just die on the vine. So at least my passion and advice and suggestion to my colleagues is that they take a leap of faith in embarking on this journey and discuss it with the university. I think the best CEOs for earlier stage companies are the inventors. They are the people who are really intimate with the technology. But that said, the inventor has to be open to acknowledge that they don't know a lot of things about the business side of the equation. So they have to bring people who can help them actually navigate this process. But at the end of the day, a lot of scientific discoveries, their impact is going to be realized only if they are commercialized. Otherwise, it's just going to be a narrower scope as a paper. So the other advice that I have been trying to promote in our university is that while it's really important to generate fundamental science, but for translational science and applied science, it's good to start from the end and then design your experiments, design your science to address an unmet need. So engineering something forward that somebody, and with the hope that somebody is gonna adopt, sometimes is not the best approach. Engineering something that actually you understand there is a market, there is an unmet need, is basically, or I think is going to have a better chance of success and having an impact. If I take it one step back, I also think that universities, as we are going forward, are going on this trend of basically incorporating entrepreneurial education and entrepreneurial mindset in a lot of STEM fields. And we don't expect everybody to become Steve Jobs of the world, but any company you work for, there is something that they are building that somebody is buying. And I believe the entrepreneurial mindset of basically how do I commercialize a product and what it takes to bring a new product to the market is something that our students in engineering or all the STEM fields can benefit from. And I hope that we can do that at the University of South Carolina. And I know that a lot of other universities have initiatives of similar scope.
Well, I'm glad that you're in the educational system and you've done this so you can bring your real life wisdom to the students, but also encourage others who are maybe on the process, Matthew, or in the process somewhere.
What a story.
Yes, seriously.
And I'm glad he's at USC. So.
I know, I was thinking about that. Congratulations on crossing the finish line with Boston Scientific, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Ehsan Jabbarzadeh, thank you so much for joining us. It's been fascinating to listen to your story. Look forward to catching up with you again when who knows what's next in your future. For those of you who joined us on today's Taking the Pulse, we hope you are encouraged and excited about the opportunities. If you'd like to learn more, just continue to stay here on Taking the Pulse, and I'm sure we'll cover more of these stories, Matthew, in the future. Absolutely. With, the rapid change in healthcare since COVID. But we look forward to reconnecting with you next time, right here on Taking the Pulse, a life sciences and healthcare podcast.